Hello everybody, welcome to the devlog, and in this video we're going to be showcasing a new cloud system, a new rival for Spunk, and we're also going to be showing off some interiors for the new town that we made last devlog. Which if you haven't seen it, you should probably go see it to make sure to check up on all the lore behind it and how it got here, so this way you are all caught up. Without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Okay, so starting off, this is my section, and in this bit I'm going to be showing you guys how I made it. So this is the interior. So first things first, we need to understand the fact that interiors are going to be bigger than the outside, especially from a game a game dev's perspective, because if you're fitting a tiny little character in a room filled with items, it's not going to work well. It worked back in the day when there was all 2D games, because you could have a grid and it showed exactly where the characters went, so you had a specific area to walk around on. But in 3D games, you have infinite possibilities, especially if you're going to be clipping into things as glitches. So the big point here is that you want to make it bigger than it seems on the outside. I don't know what it's called, but this is not like the illusion where you walk in, it's bigger on the inside than it was on the outside. It's just going to be a quick transition when you go inside and then you see the outside. Mainly because I want this to be more functional than it is good looking. But it looks pretty good. So, besides that, the way I did this was I took the cabin model and I got rid of the floor, and then I took a cylinder and used the array modifier, which is pretty useful, I won't lie. I've used this thing for quite a bit, and it's perfect for symmetry, especially when we're doing flooring, but I made some log flooring, since this is cabins, and I figured that would fit best. So, once I got the log flooring done, I then took the house and then I scaled it up, because this is going to be bigger than, like I said earlier, it's going to be bigger on the inside than it is from the outside. So once I did that, I added some furniture that I had pre-made. I don't have any footage for that, but it took quite a bit of time, so yeah, we might have more of that in the next devlog. But when I added the furniture to it, it just looked a whole lot better, especially since I can add items to it, maybe add an NPC to talk to. It's just great. So besides that, let's go on to the next bit. Oh yeah, and by the way, the process for making the other items were pretty simple. The way I made the bed was I took a cube and I just extruded it out so that it had room to hold the mattress, and it had a bedpost, since the bedposts hold the bed up. You don't want a bed on the floor. And so I figured this would look nice. I don't know how to use the cloth modifier. If anybody can help me out in the comments down below, maybe they know Blender. But I just know it's going to be heavily intensing on my computer, and I don't want to do that to it. So I figured I'd just make a simple blanket without too many details on it. And it came out pretty good. The way I made the shelves was the same thing. I took a cube and I extruded it a bunch of times, and I made sure to give it a lip at the top. And the reason I wanted to do this is because normal shelves, they've got that lip so that you have more room for items to put on it. Also, I added some shelves in there. Now, they're not practical. You can't open them. That's going to take too much time, and I don't really know what you do with that. To be fair, you could use it as a wardrobe, but you don't just walk into someone's house and take their clothes. What are you doing? So I figured I would just add those for cosmetic purposes, because what's a shelf without some drawers? I also made a lamp, and you're not going to see it because somehow when I was exporting it through an FBX file, the planes, just the lampshade wasn't registering, and I didn't know why. But the way I did it was I took a circle, and I used that to basically sculpt out the base of the lamp. I gave it a nice shiny little texture before putting it in, giving it cell shading. And for the lampshade, I just had a thing extend up and have some poles reaching out to hold it, because you can't just have a floating lampshade, especially if somebody eventually sees the inside of it. That's going to be pretty weird. So, oh yeah, so that's about it. Oh yeah, also I forgot to mention, when I'm doing the door, making an opening door animation is going to take a bit of time, and I didn't have enough time to get the animation planned out and get it all done. As simple as it is, that might come in the next devlog, but for now, I'm thinking when you walk to the door, you're going to have an option to click it or interact with it, and then it'll just cut to a cutscene and put you inside the house. Now, as much as I'd like to say this isn't professional, we are just trying to do this in our spare time, and we're trying to get it to look okay. And door animations, as much as they seem, take quite a bit of time. Not to mention the fact that we also have to add a couple more details to it. Like, I wanted to add some windows to the inside, because you can't just have a house without light. That wouldn't be cool. I know a lamp's there, but I want there to be windows. I want it to be open. I want you to be able to enjoy the scenery from the outside just as you can from the inside. Mainly because that's going to add to the charm to the game, so that we're actually putting detail into it. But besides that, we can go into the next section. Okay, now the cloud system. The reason we need this is because for the opening cutscene, we want there to be clouds. And trust me, I went on so many different tutorials trying to figure out how to make clouds. And I figured, you know what, if I can't do it, I'm just going to get Spicy Lemon member number 3 here, and I can ask him to do it for me. So the way I did it was, I modeled some clouds in Blender. I modeled 2, because I knew that Spicy Lemon member number 3 could use these, even if it was only 2. So I figured I'd give them to him. And the way he said that he did it was, he basically said that he started out by setting the area where the clouds are going to spawn, because clouds don't go everywhere. If you think about Earth, if clouds were everywhere, then the sunlight would be blocked and then we'd all freeze to death, and that's not good. You gotta have some space in between clouds. So once he set the area where the clouds would be, basically he took the max clouds and he tried to spawn in as many clouds as he could, because you want it to be full. If there's a bunch of holes in it, there's not going to be I want it to be a medium amount of clouds. Not too many, not too little, but just enough. Then he subtracted 13 just to make sure that there was a gap between them, because if the clouds are too close, then they're just going to end up looking like a thunderstorm. And that's not a good opening cutscene for the game that we're going for. Maybe for some darker games or with some not as light tones, but for us, it didn't really work. So, yeah, that's how we made the cloud system. Moving on. Also, the way I modeled the clouds was pretty simple. I took a bunch of spheres and I just plopped them together. Now, this might seem a little bit simpler than it was, but starting out, I couldn't really think of a good design for them. Especially since if you're going for a cartoon-style game, you don't really want to have clouds that look too realistic. I mean, they look good, trust me. If we were going for a more realistic day, I would take any better clouds in a heartbeat. But I figured I wanted the clouds to look cartoony, kind of from, like a cartoon or from a wacky video game. So that's the vibe I was going for with that. But at first, I didn't really know what to do with it. I tried taking a bunch of spheres, putting them together, and sculpting through the edges, because you can't just slap a bunch of spheres together, or at least that's what old me thought, and I couldn't think about anything else. I was just thinking, I had to sculpt this. But then I got reminded how bad my sculpting skills are. If anybody has any tips on that, please. I've been trying to sculpt for a while now, especially to make some landscapes, which that might be coming in the next devlog. I've been working on a cool design for a landscape, especially for some levels, so stay tuned. But besides that, when I was making the clouds, at first I didn't know what to do. I tried sculpting, it didn't work. And then I realized I can be lazy. And I just slapped a bunch of circles together and chopped off the bottom. The main reason being clouds aren't fully circles. I wanted to make it so it has a flat bottom. Don't know why. I just felt like it looked better, and I beveled the edges so that it wasn't a rough cloud. I don't want it to be like jaggedy and edgy. I can't do it. I like it smooth. If it's gonna cut your hand on it, I don't want that to be the cloud. So I figured if I didn't do that, then I was going to chop off the bottom and bevel it. So this way it was nice and smooth. And that's how I made the clouds. Honestly, it's not that hard of an issue to fix, but I don't know, I wasn't thinking outside the box, and I just didn't realize I could be lazy. So without further ado, on to the next section. Alright, Spunk's rival. So when we were going for him, we wanted to make them sort of identical. Not exactly identical, because then that would be weird, like Spunk's rival isn't going to be his twin. I mean, it could be, but I don't really want that. So when we were going for his design, we wanted him to be subconscious of himself. So, Spicy Lemon member number 1 when he was making the design for this, he came up with a great idea that he wasn't going to have eyes. Now, we figured that some of these robots in the land are going to be all funky, and they're going to have different attributes to them that make them unique. And Spunk's rival is that way because he sees Spunk as the better version of him. Since he doesn't have any eyes, he feels subconscious about it, and he wants to prove to Spunk that he is better, even though his eyes don't show that. And so that's going to be a good storyline later on in the game, especially since we can have Spunk help the rival out, since he might be feeling a little subconscious. But when we were going for it, we wanted him to have this little leather jacket. He was actually in the when we were initially designing some concept art. If you remember, if you go back to the third devlog for Spunk, when we revamped it. By the way, you should watch that just to see where we are now if you haven't. But besides that, if you go into some of the concept art there, you can see that he was actually a part of it. And when I saw this, I'm like, that is the rival. It needs to be. I figured it would open up for a bunch of storylines, like I said earlier, and maybe act as a good boss character. Because, remember, we can't just come up with bosses on the fly. We could, but I want it to make sense in the story. Which, by the way, we also have another member of Spicy Lemon now. He is going to be working on the new story, and with this, that might be coming in the next devlog once he has it fully fledged out. But the rival is going to come in handy later with bosses, and he might redeem himself at the end. Who knows? The storyline is unknown, but maybe we'll figure it out sooner. So without further ado, let's go on to the next section. There is no other section. That's about it. So, thanks for watching the video. If you really enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, because not only does it help out the channel, but it boosts our self-esteem, and we love seeing your comments. The comments are a godsend. Whenever we read them, we love responding to them. And by the way, to anybody who I haven't responded to yet, I was going in between computers, and it was a rough process, so sorry about that. Once I get the chance, I will respond to your comments, so don't worry. So, besides that, that's all for the video. Thank you guys for watching, and, time for the catchphrase. Don't forget, you're amazing. And see ya. Stay safe.